We're back with Book of Experts TV, and today I have a question for you guys. Are you meaningfully unique? Are you differentiated in your industry? Do you stand out from the competition? Really? I mean, seriously, do you? Because this is the big challenge in our space today. People are not meaningfully unique, at least to the folks who want to buy and try your products and services. So that's the topic. We brought in a whole expert panel to talk about how to differentiate your business, and we're even going to talk about that stress test. Yeah, the test to find out whether it's actually true. Are you going to get the results that you're looking for? All that's coming up in our Book of Experts TV episode.
Time for Book of Experts TV.
Topics you love.
Experts you trust.
Friction-free referrals.
Tried,
Tested,
Trusted.
This is Book of Experts, brought to you by salesman.me. All right, so let's bring in our experts. So first we have, I caught you halfway, Chris. Chris Westfall is joining us from the Houston area of Texas. Chris is an author, a keynote speaker, a Shark Tank pitch coach, national pitch champion, and we're going to be talking with him about the new elevator pitch. We also have joining us Kelly O'Neill from the Marketing to Millionaires podcast. Kelly is a strategic positioning expert. She is the go-to expert in this space of figuring out how do you find that strategy to separate yourself from everybody else. And our third guest today, this is unusual because you're getting two of us, but my co-founder at Book of Experts, Doemner, is joining us. And she's specifically going to be talking about how to create that category of one, which is an event that we have coming up for our premium members through Book of Experts. You'll get a preview of that and maybe a few insights. Let's pick our brain about how to create these points of differentiation. So the folks that you talk to, the top prospects that you actually want to work with, they see it too, because this is a challenge. We want to test this and we want to know you're going to get the results that you're after. So welcome everyone. Super excited to have you guys on. What a great panel we have organized for tonight.
Excited to be here, Joe.
Yeah, super. So folks, we're going to dive right into the questions because we've got a ton of them, some that have come in over the last week as we've been announcing what was coming up. I do want to tell folks right up front, though, before we do the expert panel, make sure you join us after the event. So I'm going to put this in the comments I lost my comments. I'll put it in there as we're chatting in a moment. We are going to be going over to our virtual event space, and you're actually going to be able to do Q&A with our experts. So if they say something and you want to ask a little bit more, we've got a little time set aside for you guys to meet the experts and also meet the other experts in the audience, the folks that are going to be watching with us, because we're going to do speed networking. All of that happens in the next hour, but for the first 40, 50 minutes, we're going to be doing panel discussion right here. So super excited to get into that. First question, Chris, we'll lead with you because you were the first one I brought in. I want to talk about how do you know? I call it the stress test. You may use different words, but how do you actually know if you're differentiated? And I think this is a big one because a lot of people say, yeah, I'm good on this, but they're not getting the results they want. So
the best message in regards to differentiation, the way that it looks to me, is that if you want to know if you've got a differentiated message, you don't look at the color of your logo or the words on your website or what's in your Twitter feed. You look at what your prospect, your client does when you're done communicating. And one way that you can differentiate yourself, and this is something that, and I'm going to, Tobin, I hope it's okay, I'm going to introduce a very sophisticated tool that I like to use when I do my coaching. It's called a whiteboard. And, I hope that's okay. But here's something that can help in terms of differentiation. And you can see this. This is pointed right here at me, and it's not a giant L, Caitlin. No, it's not. This is a line that can help you to differentiate yourself as a coach. And down here, this is what I call the goal line. In other words, if you focus on helping people to reach their goals and achieve new things by focusing on the goal line, that describes you as a coach in your coaching practice. And then this right here is called the soul line. soul line. And so as you think about what it is that you want to share in your coaching practice, and does everybody enjoy my ring light there? I hope that reflects. I line that up today. Yes, thank you very much. So where do you line up in terms of the way that you communicate and connect with your prospects as a coach? And I hope I'm interpreting the question the right way, but where do you line up on the goal line? Where do you line up on the soul line? And can your positioning here be a point of differentiation for you and for your business? So that's what's showing up for me these days as a means of differentiating your business.
So Chris, when just a question about the diagram, I love that. First of all, I had to get into the comments, the goal line and the soul line. So this is a brilliant combination of looking at this X and Y axis. How are you working with folks that they would actually plot where they feel that they're falling into these two areas?
Sure. Well, really, when you think about it, what is a brand message about? I mean, that's really what we're talking about here today, because your brand message is the way that you differentiate yourself. Wouldn't you agree? So when we think about that brand message, the brand message has to answer, and again, this is the world according to Chris, but this is the way that it looks to me. It has to answer the number one question in business today. And I suspect that we're going to answer this over and over again, especially in the speed networking portion. But here's that most important question. That question is, why should I do business with you? And the way that you answer that could be by plotting yourself on where you line up. If you're coaching folks, are you focusing on the goals? Are you focusing on the soul aspect or the personal aspect? Are you more focused on helping the individual or helping with tactics and strategies to help people to achieve a particular goal, which could be everything from a better golf swing to a multi-million-dollar business like the folks that we've got here on the call today. So I think that looking in the direction of why someone should do business with you points towards a couple of things that I think are really important. Number one, phrasing your brand message in terms of what you can do for the person right in front of you. I mean, if your brand message is, I've been a coach since 1998, does anyone ever say, well, if it was 1997, I'd work with you? That's not how it works, is it? But we use timelines like that to try to establish credibility. My question for the folks listening to the sound of my voice, and again, that might be a stretch, assuming that people are listening. I don't know. I hope so. But look beyond your credibility. And when you look beyond trying to be credible or trying to impress somebody, what you will find is service. And when you focus on the service that you can provide that is distinct, that is uniquely yours, that's when you take branding to a new level. Because branding isn't about the year that you started your business or where you learned whatever it is that you've learned or where you got your certifications. None of that stuff matters. There's one question that people want to know: why should I do business with you? And the answer to that question, at least the way that it looks to me, is always found in terms of the service that you can provide and the experience that you can create when you look in that direction in service of your client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Chris, you've given us a great North Star question here. Why should I do business with you? What's in it for me? Which is making that shift. Instead of talking about how long you've been in business or anything about ourselves, it's all about the relevance. What's in it for this person that we're trying to meet so that they can enter our world. So I think this is a great starting point. Kelly, I'd love to shift this over to you because I know this is a big part of your work. So there's two things you guys need to know about Kelly. So one, if you want to talk about marketing to the affluent, marketing to millionaires, that's her thing. She's got the podcast. She's the go-to person. The other thing is she has this whole brilliant background of doing strategic positioning with her clients and often boiling it down. Kelly, make sure I get the wording right, but down to a one-line positioning statement, because folks, you get one shot at this. You only can make that first impression one time. And I see this all the time. We go into events where, all of a sudden someone is stumbling over their words. Yeah, what do you do? Well, and you've lost your opportunity at that point. You're never going to get that back. So I'd love to hear more about your take of what you're doing when you look at this from a strategic positioning perspective.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me today. So this is what I did, in corporate America before I even got into working with entrepreneurs was I help companies strategically position themselves to create a result, right? And that result in corporate America looks like they either wanted to get acquired, they wanted to go public, or they wanted to increase their business valuation so that they got more money on better terms. Well, in the entrepreneurial market, it's just as important, but it's one of the most overlooked things. And in fact, what we have found, because, in working with tens of thousands of entrepreneurs, so many people are doing all the things, right? And it's confusing as to why it's not working. So, you're doing the podcast, you're doing the interviews, you're doing the social media, you're doing all the things. But if your messaging and your strategic positioning is not set, anything else after that is just busy work. Right? It's just busy work. Your strategic positioning and your messaging is the foundation for all of your communications. And without that, all you're doing is creating noise. And the more stuff you're doing, the more noise you're creating. And one of the reasons why this is so important right now is because our marketplaces have become completely oversaturated. With the pandemic, people have rushed online and a lot of people don't even know what they're doing. So now there's more noise and people are staying offline more than ever before because they're sick of the noise and they're getting fatigued. And so now it's even harder to get your message. So one of the things that I do when I go back, because I do it just a little bit differently than Chris does, is I look for a couple different things. What is your specific zone of genius? What is the thing that you do better than anybody else in the marketplace? Because your entire positioning and quite frankly, your business strategy should be wrapped around your zone of genius in a service-based business. And then what is it that you offer in the market that is completely different than what everybody else offers? And if you don't know, then that's really where you need to create that. And sometimes it is created, right? It is about choosing a strategic positioning, right, in the marketplace to make sure that you are that category of one, that you are the go-to expert, and that you make your competition irrelevant. So it's really about, when we talk about positioning, positioning really means what is that ultimate business strategy that you're going into the market with that's going to differentiate you. Oh, are you guys okay? Someone's crashed. I don't know.
I think we're good. We're good. I got you muted for a second, Chris.
Okay, got it. I'm like, someone just crashed. I don't know what happened. We're going back to it. So it's really, how are you entering the market? Because if you go in, and I was just talking about this on one of the trainings I led the other day, if you go in and you start telling people what it is that you do for a living, I know that there's a lot of service-based businesses on this call, and a lot of coaches and consultants. If you go in and you start saying, well, what I really do is I work with people to help them find their purpose, and you're giving a job description, that's not a position. That's a job description. And if you go in with that, no one will know what it is that you're doing differently. A lot of people, I'll give you guys a tangible example. A lot of people have over the years, which I will tell you, I don't particularly care for this, but people have said, oh, you're a business coach, which I'm not. I'm not a business coach. But they say, oh, you're a business coach. It's like, no, however, when all of a sudden I was using the exact same strategies that I've been teaching the entire time on how to strategically build profitable businesses and positioned it as marketing to the affluent, marketing to millionaires, now all of a sudden I have that entire category locked up and it's untouchable, right? The entire market knows if you want to learn to market to affluent clientele, you go talk to Kelly O'Neill. That's what you want to create for yourself. And it's totally possible, even if you're in a completely oversaturated market.
Okay, so Kelly, I love the fact that you brought us to why this is relevant right now. Like you kicked that right off. Like, what's at stake right now? We're still dealing with the pandemic, with people, the fatigue, and everything that goes along with that, right? So you made it very relevant to now. Kaylin, what I want to ask you is, why are people resisting this so hard? Like, it makes sense. Everything that Chris and Kelly have already shared, like, I can see our audience out there. I can see you guys nodding your heads. Like, of course this makes sense. And yet people are still resisting. So what's going on?
Yeah, I don't even know that they're resistant so much as they think they've got this on lockdown, right? Somebody gave them their elevator pitch. They pass out business cards. They think they've checked this box and now they're good to go. What I think a lot of people don't realize is that positioning, like all marketing, is it's a living mechanism. It's a breathing entity. It's your positioning will change on an almost minute by minute basis when you're especially in the middle of something dramatic like a pandemic. So I don't think anybody really understands what we're in the middle of. I mean, 2020 rocked everybody's boats between the pandemic and the riots and the elections, right? We were all a little bit topsy-turvy. So even if you had a really established business, you just need to recognize that what worked in 2019 is probably not what's going to work in 2021. So just recognizing even if you think you've got this, chances are you don't. And to your first question to Chris Tobin, it was, how do you know if it's working? Well, you know if it's working if you're closing deals. So this is where my perspective always comes back from a sales question is, how do they know if they want to work with you? Chris, you mentioned. So for me, are these sales pitches actually resulting in business? So when I'm testing my messaging, I'm testing it with real human beings all the time. So you can start looking at the competitive landscape. I loved how Kelly focused on the map, right? The gap in the map is where you want to start, what does the market need? And then compare that to your zone of genius, right? What is your passion? What do you think that you want to introduce into the market? And then you've got to take it to the market, because at the end of the day, the only people who can tell you if your messaging is on point are your check writers. So you have to go have real conversations with real human beings and test it. And if they say, oh, that's interesting, and they lean in and they want to learn more and they start asking questions, you know you've got something. If they smile politely and say, oh, that's nice, I'll save this business card for later, and they start walking away, then we know that we are not yet clear on what is that unique differentiating hook that's going to spark somebody's curiosity and lead them to want to ask you. So tell me more about that. How does that work?
Yeah, so I love that you brought us right to talking about this stress test and how people know either you're getting the results that you want now, and if you're not, let's do something. Let's have an intervention and step in there. I do want to take a second and just say, so first of all, welcome. We've got a bunch of folks that are joining us in the comments. New members, new names that we haven't seen before. By the way, you guys can say hello. I'm new to the podcast. I'm new to Book of Experts TV. I would love to hear you, get to know you guys. Of course, we'll have a chance to do this afterwards when we do the Q&A and the speed networking and all that good stuff. I also want to give a shout out to, and I'm going to own this. So Eve, I'm going to put this on the screen. She said, damn, you guys need more diversity in your panel. And you know what, Eve? You're 100% right. This is actually something that we have talked about with Book of Experts and how we can bring more different voices, different faces. It's not just, I don't know, this is a pretty Caucasian group, so that might be part of what you're referencing here. But diversity comes in many different ways, and that is something that plays into the choices of experts that we bring in, and that is the mission that we have with Book of Experts, is to bring all these different perspectives together, because by definition, when you are an expert, you can be an expert in all things, right? So I wanted to put this on the screen to own it. We hear you, Eve. You're right. We need to do better. We will do better. It's part of what we're already plans that we're putting in place, and just recognize that diversity of perspectives and experience that people bring to the table can come in all different shapes and forms. And that's what we're talking about. But 100%, you're right. We can do better than we did tonight. This is still a great group, so I'm happy to have you here, but I hear her. I think she raises a decent point. And for other folks that are out there in the audience, again, say hello, let us know that you're here. If you have questions, you can ask here on social media. You can also join us. I put the link in the comments. It's at AirMeet. That's the platform that we're using for the virtual event, the Q&A tables. You actually, it's going to look a little bit like this. So let's get this on the screen. So it's going to look like this. You can see, each expert's already going to have a table where you can join them at the tables. We'll have 15 minutes set aside. You can talk with each of our experts, sort of pop in a small group format. And you'll notice up above here, we're going to be speed networking as well. And you're going to get in 30 minutes a chance to meet somewhere between 5 and 10 different new people for a couple minutes, get to know them, and make a decision of whether you might actually want to continue the conversation. That's up to you if you want to do that. It's no requirement, but this is one of the big benefits of what we're doing in the community is making introductions between people. Sometimes those end up in referrals, new clients, new prospects. It could be a strategic partner or just a new friend, the kind of people that you should be working with that will expand your perspectives, expand your horizons in different ways. So that's what's coming up next. I want to shift the question to, let's actually talk about what does it actually mean to be meaningfully unique. So Chris, you shared with us that graphic on the board right up front. You talked about the goal line, the results that people want. There's this other dimension of the soul line. Each of us are unique. And how do you decide to sort of play those two sides? Is that decided at each individual's level? I'd love to hear you talk, if you were walking someone through that decision-making process of where they're trying to find their meaningful uniqueness.
Well, let's say that I'm trying to find my meaningful uniqueness and I'm engaging in some sort of conversation or dialogue with someone. The question immediately becomes, where should I put my attention, right? Because it's no secret where you put your attention is where you find your results. And should I put my attention on my academic background or my work experience or this fabulous haircut? I'm just going to put it out there. Okay. It's a home haircut. Thank you very much. My 17-year-old daughter gave it to me. Please don't put anything in the comments about it. But where should we put our attention? What I suggest, at least where I try to put my attention with the clients that I work with, is 100% on my client. I shift my focus away from myself because at the end of the day, if I say something but they don't see it, it doesn't exist. Much like my picture didn't exist on the screen there for a moment, Tobin. I don't know what you were doing, but
I'm still working through that. I don't know what I'm doing here either. So here we go. This is what we're after.
I'd rather see Caitlin anyway. Okay, back to the story. Here's my point, and I do have one. It's this. Where you want to put your attention firmly is always on your client. And when it comes to how people come to understand your expertise, I mean, you could sit there and you can talk about it until you're blue in the face. You can tell them about your academic accomplishments, your work accomplishments, and what you've achieved. In fact, what you've achieved for others. But I work with a lot of people in the financial markets, and a lot of the coaching that I've done to help my clients get in front of, people like Mr. Wonderful and Mark Cuban on Shark Tank, and even Dragon's Den in Canada, Shark Tank Australia, boom, boom, name drop, name drop, name drop. I'm done with that now. But here's my point. People in the financial markets will tell you past performance is no indication of future results. So what does that mean? That if you want people to experience your expertise, they need to experience your expertise. And quite frankly, if you're talking about what you did in New Orleans 3 years ago, people will quickly remind you that you're not in New Orleans and it's not 3 years ago. In fact, what we did 3 months ago, the world has changed. And right now there is a greater call than ever before to create the one thing in business that every client is looking for. And that is an experience of your coaching, of your ability to point people towards their goal line or towards their soul line, or some combination of both, which is where I believe the best coaches live. And I can certainly speak in my experience with Caitlin. There's a powerful combination of her coaching that focuses on goals, but also there's a real element of heart and authenticity, because it's the human factor that helps us to use those tools more effectively. And I want to thank you for that, Caitlin. It's been a real influence in my life and in my work. But what we want to do is provide that experience in some way that creates what it is that's unique about you. Because the thing that is unique about working with everyone who's listening to the sound of my voice is that experience of your expertise, your insight, and your knowledge. And that begins when you take the focus off of yourself and concentrate on your client. If you want to ask yourself two questions that will screw you up in the client conversation, and it'll also screw you up if you're a keynote speaker, if you're doing a keynote or a big presentation, ask yourself these questions silently, and it will screw it up. I promise you. Here they are. First one is, who am I? Second one, how am I doing? Now you've put your attention on yourself rather than on your audience, rather than on the person that you can serve, rather than on creating the experience of what it's like to work with you. And what do you think people want to know? What school did you go to in 1994? Or a bigger question, how can you help me? That's the question on everyone's mind. And that's the secret. The answer is the secret to powerful branding.
Chris, I heard a couple things there. One is, people really don't care who we are until they know how much we care. And you really emphasized, and Caitlin, I want to bring this to you in just a moment to talk about the experience factor, because this is something that I've heard, I'll give Caitlin credit on this, talking about the tried, tested, and trusted aspect of working with other people. We need that opportunity to try them out, to test what it's like to be in their world and engage with them, which ultimately leads to the trust that it takes, to the know, like, and trust that it takes to do business. So Caitlin, I'd like to go to you. Kelly, I'll be right to you in a moment about this, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about your perspective on this experience and the empathy that it takes to enter someone's world and give them that full experience.
Oh, you're muted.
There of that you really need to focus on service, because that's how I went from hating sales to being a $2.5 million a year closer, right? I just focused on loving and serving the other person. So the first thing that I teach my clients to do is you need to ground yourself in that place of love and service. And then it doesn't matter whether you're going to close a deal or not. And so as we think through each sales process, we talk about sales being a 3-part process where you engage, you educate, and then you enroll. And I think, Tobin, what you're talking about is this education phase. So when we're doing networking tonight, you guys will get to try out your elevator pitches. You'll try and engage people. And then if you're doing things well, they say, how are you doing that? I want to learn more about that, right? And that's when you can talk to them about your proprietary methodology. And you can say, would you like to try it out? So I was just coaching one of our clients through it. And we started with a hook, right? Her thing is, I cure insanity. So that was the first opening line. And then I think it's also important to anchor with some case studies. Chris, you actually taught me this. Incorporate story into your pitch. So yeah, I've helped my clients do X or Y or Z. And to your point, it's not about those stories. It's simply to give them an idea of what's possible. So as if you've ever read the book Made to Stick, so I don't know, what's the book? It's been a while since I read it, but it talks about schemas, right? So our brain is like Velcro, and we can't work on something new unless it connects to something we know. So Kelly, you were like, people ask, oh, you're a business coach, right? No, I'm not a business coach, but there was that Velcro. It was something that they could attach to. They're like, I think I know what you mean. So your elevator pitch is walking a very fine line between anchoring from the things that they already know, the schema that you can Velcro onto, where they say, okay, I think I get what you're doing, and then launch off to, and this is how I'm different from anything that you've talked about. So Chris, you mentioned soul and then goal. So I think talking about their goals, the end result that you can create for people, I love it when I can speak to results. So a lot of service-based entrepreneurs will sell their time, and it's almost impossible to differentiate time. But if you're focusing on the results that you create, then it starts being really clear of why they want to engage with you. The case studies, just anchor that, and then stop, let them ask, how do you do that? And then you come in and you hit them with your proprietary methodology, right? And you explain, this is how I do it in a way that's completely unique. And then that ending with, would you like to try it? Right? And that's, to your point, is if you have a little pink spoon that you can dip a little bit of what you do and you can let them taste it, then they're going to buy more ice cream. So making sure that you have either a free or a low entry point where people can experience you, because at the end of the day, the only thing that will ever be truly unique about your business is you, right? And so they need to have an understanding of who you are, what's your character, what's your methodology, right? Kelly and I are both strategists, but I guarantee we're going to strategize very differently because of our personal backgrounds, our education, our expertise, and just how we're wired, right? So it doesn't matter like kind of what you're going to get sometimes as much as who, and you can only really feel that that is this person going to be the right fit for me when you've had an experience with them that gets transformational change for them.
So one of the things that and this is interesting, it's different than I was expecting to hear, which is there's a little bit of balancing going on. The balancing is going on between, to use the example of the Velcro, the made to stick book, that people have to wrap their head around something that they know and recognize. And at the same time, we also need to see something different to keep our attention. Chris talked about the goal line and the soul line. So it sounds like, and Kelly, I'm coming to you next on this question. It sounds like with really good positioning, there is going to be a balancing act between what we bring to the table, what the person on the other side of the table, or maybe they're sitting right next to us, what they want to see. How do you extract the information you need in working with a client to find that point of balance?
That is such a great question. All right. So whenever I work with any kind of client, again, I'm looking for that innate zone of genius that's within them already. Again, when we're talking about positioning and honestly, in this conversation, I feel the need to make sure that I educate the market in this. We're really having two different questions here. We're having two different conversations. One conversation is specifically about the strategic positioning of your business. How are you going to market, right? Which is the what I call the big P positioning. But then we're also having a conversation of how do we position our product? How do we position our service? How do we create that positioning, elevator pitch, which are, if you imagine this, it's like you've got the tabletop and then you've got all the different legs. So positioning is not something that is done lightly. It is absolutely it's not something that people do themselves. It's something that you work. I mean, in my opinion, you work with an expert to be able to do it. But you need to be able to come to the table with some things. And those things are like, what is it that is your genius in the world? And even if you don't know the answer to that question, it's what is the thing that makes you unique about the work that you do in the world? So there's the thing you do, right? So as an example, Caitlin and I, we're both business strategists, but we do it very differently. Well, what is it that makes you unique, right? What is the thing that you do different, better, faster, with more results, whatever it is that the thing that you do that's different than everybody else. And then there even could be a component of how you do that's different than everyone else. And then, so that's one aspect of it, is the clarity around you. But in order to strategically position yourself into the marketplace, you also have to understand your ideal client and what is the problem they have. And this would be a writer downer. What's the problem they have worth solving that you're going to be the best one to solve? Because again, a lot of times when people are trying to come up with their messaging, they're making it about themselves and it's not about you. At the end of the day, and I can tell you, especially because I primarily work with highly affluent clients, or I teach people to work with affluent clients, they don't care about all the other stuff. They care about the result that you're going to give them. And one of those results could be experience. But there's some people that's not necessarily what they care about. Like if you're buying a business to business, I mean, sure, they're going to want to have a good customer service and experience, but they're not in replace of the results that they're getting from you. So you need to be really clear on why they're buying you and what is the problem that you solve in the marketplace. And why are, one of the questions I ask people is, why are you the best one to solve it? Especially in a coaching and consulting market, there's a gazillion people who do that. Why you? What is your background? What is your experience? These are all the things that get put into that overarching brand story. And we're getting a little off track here, but it gets put into the overarching brand story that helps you solidify the position in the marketplace. And then how are you distilling that? I love the example that Caitlin gave. I teach a process called the one-liner elevator pitch. And that is about creating, how do you distill that down into one line that directly tells someone exactly what it is that you do better than anyone else and the problem that you solve succinctly and in a way that is going to create what I call a pattern interrupt, or well, not what I call it. It's called a pattern interrupt, right? You need to be able to pop them in the eyes and have them go, huh, tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. I have a client who does fertility. She does helps women who are struggling to get pregnant, and her one-liner elevator pitch is, I make mommies. Now, if you're in the marketplace for that, there you go, right? It's and then oh, tell me more about what you do there. It has to be different.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that answered your question.
It did, and so I have a couple of questions to build on that. One, I want to clarify. So the big P of positioning, I think what I heard you say involves everything from your business model to what you're bringing to the table, where you fit in the market, and the small P you're describing as how we talk about it. Is that a fair?
The small P are all of the legs of the table that stand up to reinforce that big positioning.
Including this one-line elevator pitch and your marketing. Okay, got it. And the other thing that I want to take this to. So Kelly, you brought up the one-line elevator pitch. Chris, I know you work with what you call the new elevator pitch. Caitlin, you talk about the category of one. In our remaining time, I would really like to go around the panel, around the round table here, and talk about what can you share with our audience out there? We're going into speed networking. What little hack, trick, tidbit can you share that they could try out tonight as they're meeting new folks and start to reach this, oh, that's kind of interesting. How do you do that reaction when maybe they've never gotten that before? So I'd love to hear your perspective. Chris, I'm going to bring it back around to you first. If we can talk, because I know each of you guys you've got your respective work in this area. What is something that the audience can take away from you?
Well, let me access the new elevator pitch, which you referenced. So, and I just happen to have it here with me. This is by one of my favorite authors. I don't know if you can see, but
that is one big book.
Just a talent. Well, it's a big talent, big book.
Oh.
Let me give you 4 prompts. I will give you 4 prompts that can help you to start the conversation, that elevator pitch, because we're going to be doing speed networking and things like that. Things that can help you to open up the conversation. And these aren't one sentence strategies. It's an opportunity to start the conversation. And I can tell you a little bit of the science that it's based on. But these are ways to access your personal story in a way that's authentic and real and not necessarily a sales pitch, simply a conversation. The first one is, I'll never forget the time when. Somebody comes up, tell me a little bit about yourself. I'll never forget the time when. This is really useful if you have a defining moment in your past that has put you on a path that you are on today, something that has started your career, and that has been a really defining moment. I can give you an example from the world of healthcare, if that would be helpful. I can share one real quick of I'll never forget the time when. Would that be useful?
Yeah, I think we're entering your sphere as a storyteller here. So that's one of the things I appreciate about your approach, Chris, is that you really have the hooks that allow us for the story to unfold.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, everybody has a story. We all have stories to tell, and effective connection is about simply accessing them. And so these prompts can help provide you with that access. If you're interested in using the I'll never forget the time when, here's an example. And this is an example from the world of healthcare. I'll never forget the time when my baby sister was diagnosed with cancer. And I was just in high school at the time, and watching her go through the treatments, the chemotherapy, it was incredibly difficult for me, for her, as you can imagine, for my family, my parents. But here's the good news. She made it through with flying colors. She's been in remission for many, many years. But that's why I do what I do. My name is Becky Roberts. I'm the lead RN in the oncology department here at Memorial Hermann Health Center. And I want you to know that if you or someone in your family is facing this horrible disease, I have a personal connection to making sure that you succeed. Now, I ask you, do you see it? How is that different than saying, hi, my name's Becky Roberts. I live in Dallas. Right? I've been an RN since 1998. It's the story that you tell that teaches people how to treat you, how to engage with your ideas. Here are some additional prompts that you can try. How about this one? Have you ever noticed, and I'll just leave it blank at the end. Have you ever noticed something about the way that the world works, the way that you see the world? What is it that you can share that isn't necessarily, I mean, you're not going, have you ever noticed how smart I am? Let me share my expertise in a way that hits you over the head so that you're put off by it. No. I'm talking about acknowledging the expertise of the person right in front of you by saying something that I call a high concept. And a high concept, it's something that I talk about in my books. It's an overall theme or idea that anyone anywhere can say yes to. What is it that anyone anywhere can say yes to? Let me give you an example. I'll just give you, have you ever noticed how we all want a sense of family and belonging? Have you ever noticed how important it is to connect during these times of isolation and social distancing? You see what I mean? And your head is nodding, and that's what you want. Why? Because a persuasive conversation, that enrollment conversation, as Caitlin has told me so many times, it's a series of yeses. So you start with this high concept, something that everybody says yes to. I said this one time, Tobin, I was working with a client, I said this to him, and I explained the high concept. It's something that anyone anywhere can say yes to. And I said, do you understand this? He goes, yes, I understand it. I said, okay, give me your high concept. So this guy stands up and he goes, okay, do you have kids? I'm like, no, Gunga Dan, no, that's not it. That's an if-then statement. You want something that I'm interested in. Yes. I live in the land of yes. As often as I can, I go there. And so what is it that you can get people to say yes to that acknowledges their expertise? Why would you do that? Because it opens up the conversation. Then you follow it with something that's unexpected, something that's counterintuitive, something that people have not heard before about the services that you provide. What is it that you see that others don't or won't or can't?
I love that you're using these story mechanisms to get people to buy in at a heart level. Like we're leaning into the conversation. Here's my challenge to you, Chris. I want you to hold back the next two. I know you mentioned you've got 4. We have a Q&A table coming up shortly. This may be something folks may show up at that table wanting to know about number 3 and 4. But I want to keep us moving. Kelly, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you're guided. I love your example of I make mommies. It couldn't be shorter or simpler. How are you helping people create that?
So again, it really does have to do with them really understanding their positioning first. And part of the way we draw this out in a simple form for them is helping them craft that one-liner. And so I have a little formula that I teach, which is, what is the bold result that you create, and how super simple and authentic can you make it? Because I also believe in being really authentic. And so the last thing, in my opinion, that it affects, you do not want to sound canned. You want to be able to have a real conversation with people, because if someone comes at me sounding canned, I'm out. Like, I'm checked out. It's not the way real people talk. So, as an example, so what is that bold statement that you can make that's result oriented? I make mommies, I help entrepreneurs market to millionaires, and then it's automatically, if that's really what they're after, they're going to say, well, tell me more. And this is where I kind of teach my clients, again, to have a very conversational approach. It's like, how there's people are really struggling right now with fertility problems, and more so than ever before, we see that women are it is harder than ever before to get pregnant. Well, what I do is that I help women identify blah, 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 and the result is, right? It's just a super simple formula. And at the end of that super simple formula, they've got their answer about whether or not they want to learn more. And literally what ends up happening is they'll say, do you have a card? So when we know, that's how we know that you've nailed it. We know that you've nailed it because they're saying, I'd really like to talk more to you, or I have someone to introduce you to. Do you have a card? Mm-hmm. Really conversational, really authentic, really results oriented. Those are the pointers I want to give to you guys. But be bold. Be bold.
I had to get you back in there for that. Okay. what I really love here is you brought us back around to where we started, which is this stress test of, is it good enough? And Caitlin, this is where I want to bring it to you, because we're wrapping up here on the expert panel part of our live stream. We're going to be going into the Q&A and the speed networking in just a moment. What are you doing to intervene with folks when they're not getting that reaction of, tell me more, here's my card, I'd love to, like, how are you doing this? What happens when the pitch falls flat?
So I mean, this is one of the reasons that we're hosting networking events. You guys will get to do your own stress test tonight. And if you're one of our members in Book of Experts, you'll get this every single week with new people. So I think the biggest encouragement is, don't feel like you can actually fail, right? You might fall on your face a couple of times, but you're going to learn from that experience and you're going to get better. And this is like anything in life. The more you practice it, the more you'll improve. For our members, we also do a pitch test workshop. And so we get everybody in a room and we say, okay, give us your best pitch. And then what we're listening for is, how referable are you? And this is where we spend 2 hours just focusing on this piece, because we do have a community of experts. And the key is, we don't believe that there's any such thing as competition. We believe that you are uniquely suited. You have been put on this planet to solve one unique problem for one perfect client in your unique way, right? So there's no reason for anybody to feel like they're in a state of competition, but it's our job to kind of pull away from everything that's not you, that's not serving your client, and really hone in on that uniqueness. And then we test it by, how referable are you? So when you, to this point, Kelly, where you said it's conversational, there should be a reaction that happens to it. We want that reaction to be like, oh my gosh, right? I need to introduce you to my sister, right? Tell me more. Exactly. When they are asking you to tell me more, then they think of somebody in their head that they can picture, because too often our elevator pitches are too high level and it's not clear who I'm supposed to refer you to. So one gal came to me, she's like, well, I'm an NLP coach. And I'm like, that's great. I'm glad that's on your business card. I have no idea who I'm supposed to send you as a referral. And so it's a matter of getting really clear on that avatar, not for the avatar's sake, but you should be able to, if I'm not the person that you're trying to sell to, I should at least know somebody in my network of 250 people that is close to the person you're referring to. So just make sure that it's clear enough that somebody can think of an actual human being in their head. They're like, oh, that reminds me of Bob. I got to introduce you to Bob, right? So that's the easiest way that you can test and see if your messaging and your positioning is on point. And that's why we give you these opportunities to test it out in real life.
So folks, this is what success looks like. That when you get this right, you are memorable and you're meaningfully unique, to the point that you're either you're a dog whistle for exactly the people who you should be talking to. They want to do business with you, or they're going to walk away and be able to talk with you, and mention other people that they want to bring into your world. It's that clear, crystal clear for them to make the connections. Folks, this is what happens now. We're going to start to make our transition. I've got one more thing that we're going to do with our panelists. This is probably one of the most fun things we do. We get a lot of rave reviews about this. We're going to do the expert panel picks of the week. That means we're going to do a quick round the room and hear favorite books, favorite apps. What are our experts loving lately? Because we always discover really cool things. We're going to do that. We'll talk about how you can enter their world, whether it's their website or a lead magnet or something they have. If you found someone that you found really interesting, you want to connect with them, I bet they've got something for you to make that easier than ever before. And of course, we're going to jump into our speed networking next. The link is in the comments. Wherever you're watching this on social media, we put the link in. It's at AirMeet. We've got events on Facebook and LinkedIn to help you find this as well. We're going to go over to AirMeet. It's a virtual meeting space. We've got tables already set up for you. I think I showed this before. We're actually going to bring this up so you can see, join one of the tables, ask questions of our panelists, meet the other experts in the audience. All of this is going to be happening as we turn over here in the top of the hour. But before we do that, let's do the expert panel picks of the week. We're going to do in reverse order. I'm going to go to you first, Caitlin.
Yeah. So for me, it's my new Remarkable tablet. If you haven't seen these yet on Facebook, your newsfeed will probably be filled with it. But it's just a tablet where I can write, see all those notes that I've been taking today. I got 2 of Chris's prompts. And then I can send it to myself as notes, and it's fantastic because I don't have to go through, I used to go through one of these like a month and could never find my notes, and now they're all in one place.
Cool.
Yeah, I have to say, it is amazing what they're doing with technology. I'm also writing on a tablet these days, and writing a full page of handwritten notes, and with one click, it will turn it all to typewritten text. With almost, I would say, 99.9 accuracy. It's really unbelievable what they're doing. I love this. Very cool to see you actually with your notes on that as well. Kelly, I would love to hear your panel pick of the week.
One of the things that I love is I love to read, but frankly, I don't have a ton of extra time. So I've subscribed to a service called Get Abstract, which gives you book abstracts that pull it's like Cliff Notes for adult business people. So I really, really love that because there's so many different business books that come out like on a daily basis. And it allows me to kind of at least sort through things very, very quickly, pick up the good nuggets. And then also I can figure out which books I want to buy and read in full.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, I've been curious about this too. How often do you find yourself hearing the abstract, really getting into it, and going back to the original source? Is that common?
I would feel it 1 in 5 times because I love to buy books. But I need my book reading addiction to catch up with my book buying addiction. And then I just feel bad. And I don't know if that happens to anybody else. It really is a matter of time for me.
Very, very cool. Chris, your panel pick of the week.
My panel pick of the week is a book that I absolutely love. And I didn't want to share any of the books that I've written because I think that would be like a shameless plug if I were to do something like that, because, I really wanted to pick something no, not this one, this book right here, Impossible to Ignore by Carmen Simon. She's a neuroscientist in San Francisco. And this is all about how to create memorable content and how to make your message memorable as well. And it looks at the way that we process memories in the past to create our future. It's a fascinating book. You can see I've got it tagged and flagged here, and I recommend it very highly from my friend Carmen Simon.
I think a very relevant suggestion for the topic of what we're discussing tonight.
It was like, is that on Get Abstract? Because that would be awesome.
Kelly's going, read it.
No, you can't claim the full reading yet. You've heard it. You've got the teaser already.
I've got it.
So the last thing I want to share from my panel pick of the week, I've noticed a consumption habit for myself that I've been sort of paying attention to. And here's what it is. We are completely out of terrestrial TV. All of the TV that we're watching these days, I would say with the exception of the debates a few weeks ago, that might be the only exception, has turned to apps, what they call OTT, over-the-top television. You guys would be familiar with, of course, Netflix, Prime, maybe you're using Roku or Apple TV. This is where the majority of TV consumption is happening. So for me, it started watching, I was watching Twit TV, which is This Week in Tech TV. As an example, it's roundtable discussions around topics in the tech space that I find really interesting and fascinating. It's also super relevant to what we're doing at Book of Experts TV, because next month we're launching our OTT apps, because this is where folks are going, right? This is what they're paying attention to, whether they're watching on devices like this through mobile apps, or whether it's the apps on your big 60, 70 inch screen TV as well. So I just think that's really interesting. I'd love to hear from our audience out there in the comments. Are you guys using the OTT apps? What are some of your favorites? What are the obscure apps like Twit TV that you might be paying attention to that others might not know about yet? Make sure you check out Book of Experts TV. It's coming really soon we're a couple weeks out, I think, in the app stores. As we wrap up, can we do quick call to action for you guys? Where should folks go? We'll do reverse order, which would be Chris, Kelly, and then Caitlin, and then we'll wrap up and we'll jump over into the Q&A tables.
The call to action is a challenge. Answer this question in your branding. What's the biggest promise you can keep? What's the biggest promise you can keep? And if you want to find out more about me, you can hit me on my website. That's Westfall Online. You see it there in my namesake down below. And you can also check out my videos on YouTube. That's youtube.com/Westfall Online, and see what shows up for you. What's the biggest promise you can keep?
Oh, I love this. I can't wait to see what some of the answers will be on that. Kelly, how about you? Where would you like folks to go to enter your world?
Well, this is just a very timely discussion because I have put together a positioning mini workshop where I'm going to be actually giving away our one-liner elevator pitch training, which is a $300 training, as well as inviting people to come and watch me workshop people's positioning and messaging statements live. This is actually Caitlin's absolutely brilliant brainchild of an idea. So the way that you can find out about that is come and join us in our community. You can go to marketingtomillionairescircle.com. Join us there. You'll be entered into our community that is hosted on Facebook, and we will let you know all the details about that because we've got 5 upcoming mini workshops where I'm going to be doing it. I'm coming in hot, guys. Coming in hot. I'm going to get you guys dialed live. So come join us.
So awesome. Caitlin, for time reasons, I'm actually going to have you share yours from the stage, because I know we're going to talk we're going to share some background for folks about Book of Experts that they may be interested in what you've been working really hard on. We'll do that from the stage over in AirMeet. That's where we're going next, folks. That's where you're going to have an opportunity to sit down in the small group table discussions with our experts. When you land there, the last thing I'm going to do is make sure we get that link in the comments again, just so for folks, they don't have to chase it down, right? That's always the hard part. So let me copy this. We'll throw it into the comments real quick. This is where you can join us over on AirMeet. Make sure you jump in there. We'll see you there shortly. Q&A tables with the experts, speed networking for 30 minutes, and then we wrap up for the night. I'll see you guys there.